Hello and welcome to Snetterton. I'm here this weekend to race my RS660 and my BMW with no limits. This is a quick club, and recently I've not been riding fast enough. So this weekend I need to knuckle down, attack some lap times and hopefully make some progress with my riding. Now to do that I need slightly less distraction, and so I'm not doing quite as much vlogging as I normally do on a race weekend, because what I need to do is really analyse my riding during the weekend, sit down, think about it, and try not to distract myself by talking to you wonderful people out there. As much as I enjoy you, this weekend you're getting the cold shoulder. So I'm still going to do some onboards and a little bit of chatting, but not as much as normal. So sit back, relax for a bit of a shorter video, and then when you've got some spare time left, go and watch some of my old stuff. I particularly recommend the Bonneville videos. So there have been a couple of major developments with the Supertwin, and the first one of which is definitely worth the most speed, is it now has paint. I will admit the tank hasn't been painted yet because we've been using it, and there is going to be a slight tweak down here to have a bit more white and make it look less like a seam line, but it is already considerably better, and you can see it's going much faster even stood still. Then you'll also notice the new Obsession Engineering logo. So I need to thank Darren at Design Point for coming up with an awesome new logo with a new icon, which will be in the top corner by now. The next important thing we've done is thrown away the piece of junk standard shifter that has loads of movement in it and sort of just cuts the ignition as and when it feels like it when you get your foot anywhere near the lever, and get a strain gauge HM shifter. Now this one that we've gone for is a direct replacement for the OEM, so it plugs into this standard wiring loom, and it's nice and solid because it's not a switch, it's a strain gauge, and that's awesome because it gives a load better feel at the lever and has a less tendency to cut out and do silly things. So that's awesome. They also make a standalone one that doesn't go into the standard loom, that does the shifter and the blipper thing. If you want one, they are available from HM, or you can contact me through my website and I will sell you one. Around the other side of the bike we have a little development. So Jolly over at Jolly's Carbon has made us a carbon exhaust hanger for our Arrow system, and this is awesome. It looks considerably better and it weighs 54 grams, whereas the standard one's 140 something, so under half the weight. Looks cool, is just as strong, and he's even made us, if we really want it, what he calls the lightweight version, which is 34 grams, but we thought we'd go a little bit more solid and keep that one. So that's the development on the Twin. Everything else we've done has just been sort of chassis setup work and bits like that. We are trying different bell mouths today, but nothing major. On the BMW, I've put some fresh tyres in it, because I don't actually remember when I put that front tyre in that was in before, and I've gone to the 270 rear as opposed to the 195 that I was on before, because the 200 is the one we'll be running at TT, so I need to do a bit of time on that tyre. But other than that, the BM is generally awesome, and now I really need to just go out and ride them faster. As I lined up for the first race, my book of excuses was overflowing, and some of them were a little bit more valid than others. We'll start off with the fact I've not been to Snetterton in 7 years, and I've actually only raced the 300 version of the circuit once. So the test day the day before being incredibly cold and covered in red flags wasn't particularly useful. Excuse number 2, qualifying in the morning was incredibly cold, so on the Twin I actually put a set of road tyres in it. Turns out they're very, very good when it's very cold. Not so good when you're trying to pull a qualifying lap out of them. So I qualified 12th on the grid, but 10 seconds off the pace. That was actually better than the qualifying on the big bike though, where I qualified 29th and 11 seconds off the pace, because I got no test sessions on the big bike at all, and so it was a little bit of a culture shock going from 95 horsepower all test day to 200 horsepower down the straights on race day. Along with the excuses is I didn't put the camera in a very good place for the first race on the Twin, so you get a lovely look at my boot. My final excuse should have been the one that was easiest to rectify, but it is the one that's probably affected performance the most. I've not really had enough sleep. I've had a very busy couple of weeks, and when I should have been going to bed, I haven't been.
and I don't tend to function very well without sleep. And that might have affected me more than I thought. But never mind any of that, now we're racing. So I get my head down, and I have a good little race on the Twin, and I think I finished 7th, or something like that. But then I had to go back to back onto the big bike, and that was a bit slower. And I ended up quite near the back. So it did definitely give me some targets for improvement for the next day.
It's Sunday morning and I might have the sun in my eyes, but it is still very cold, and I'm walking the track because there's a couple of places where I'm struggling a little bit and losing quite a lot of time. So I'm going for a bit of a walk to have a look at the circuit, try and build some reference markers and generally learn where I'm going. Coram is a big, long, fast corner, and because it's long and fast, it is worth a lot of your lap time. And at the moment, I'm not getting it right at all. It is definitely my weakest point on the circuit. Now the reason for this is, it's quite big and wide here, there's nothing to see, which is lovely if it's an old airfield, but it's not very good for reference markers. And in racing, what you want is reference markers, so you know where to turn in, where to aim for mid-corner, where to apex, and that sort of thing. And round here, there isn't really much in the way of markers. So that's why I've come for a walk, because I'm going to try and build up a picture of it in my head of where I need to be on the track at certain points in the corner, and then hopefully I can use those to go quicker and quicker each lap until I actually feel like I'm getting it right. So my natural instinct here is to go in towards this white line, in towards what I think is the apex, because it looks like an apex. And overnight I was watching some onboards from people who were doing a considerably better job than me, and what they tend to do is come in and not quite get on the white line, but into sort of that quarter of the track, so about where I'm stood now, and then they hit that apex, but then they accelerate quite hard and run quite a lot wider out towards, sort of beyond the marshal post, more towards the end of those barriers over there, the tyre walls. So I think that's going to be a bit of a marker for me. So I'm going to hit the first apex a little bit wide, and then I'm going to drive as hard as I dare on the side of the tyre, and I'm going to point myself probably towards halfway along that sort of tyre wall recticel area, and hopefully that will give me a lot more mid-corner speed and make my line better for the second half of the corner. The other thing I've just noticed just here, and I could feel it yesterday when I was riding round, but when you actually see it for real, you can sort of see some little dark strips of tarmac, and that's actually where there's more rubber laid down, and that's bumps in the circuit, and they're quite pronounced. So as you go over those and you're sort of trying to carry quite a lot of speed, you do get a little bit of a bobble from the front, which in my head says don't go any faster. But like the TSL van, I was getting overtaken here, so I do need to go faster. You can even see now walking around it that although you'd think you want to apex on the curb, because normally that's what a curb means, all the rubber marks from everybody riding around yesterday are here. So sort of a third, even getting towards halfway out in the circuit. What I suspect as well is the smaller bikes like my Supertwin and stuff, you can get tighter into the curb and carry more mid-corner speed, but on the big bikes you want to drive them out of the first bit of the corner, out wider, and then cut them back more for the sort of braking area into the last little chicane. So round here I don't want to be 2 foot from the curb where I was yesterday, I want to be halfway across the track. But of course when you're down here, you're with your head not much above the tarmac, you actually lose even more of these references and bits because you're lower down. The other thing that didn't help yesterday was it was quite windy. So the whole time this is happening, you've got this going on as well with the wind hitting your helmet, and that's a bit off-putting as well. Many excuses, but this is why I'm here walking around it, because I need to do it better. The other slight paranoia I sometimes have is, because I'm quite low down, sort of down here, and you're looking over that way, it's quite easy to lose where the edge of the track is over here. So you might think to yourself, oh no, if I run a little bit wide I'm going to run out of track and then I'll be on the grass and bad things will happen. But actually this is a wide circuit, so even when I'm here and I think I'm a long way from the curb on the inside, I've actually still got over half the track spare over there, so if I do mess it up, it isn't the end of the world. It is also convenient that it hasn't rained in a couple of days. The grass is quite dry, so if you do mess it up, you can stand it up and you can go all the way nearly to the start-finish line. So now I'm looking for this bit of sort of dirt along here, and I don't want to turn in yet. That is still too early. But I am beginning to turn tighter for the second half of the corner. So I'll be rolling the throttle a bit and just trying to get it tucked in, because I need to get right onto the inside of the track for the last little chicane, otherwise I'm going to bugger that up. So yesterday in my search for reference markers, I found this little piece of concrete just here. And I was using that as a marker to sort of tell me I was most of the way around the corner and was getting into the right place. But that's still a little bit early, so I was hitting that and then running out into the middle of the track and not getting a very good entry or exit out of the little chicane at the end. So what I need to do is make sure I'm still wide of that by a third of the track. Right, this is the important bit, where we've got this strip of dirt down here and you've got all the tyre marks here. That's because this is actually the only time you want to be right in by the white line. So you would really argue that this is actually the apex. I mean, we've done, you know, a few hundred metres round a corner, and this here is the apex right at the end of the corner. So what I need to be doing here is pulling the bike back over here and basically trying to get onto the white line so that I can brake nice and hard in a straight line to get myself set up for the run out of the last little chicane. So the plan is to go in towards the first apex way back at the start. So I'm going to go in towards that, into the last quarter of the track, and then I'm going to open the throttle and I'm going to drive it round, and I'm going to make sure I'm a third to halfway out of the track when I go past the curb bits, and then I'm going to start looking towards the inside of the corner here so that I can basically drive square and square off the end of the corner so that I can drive up to this point, squirt the brakes, chuck it on its side and drive out of here. Now there's a bit of a thing with this. The old Snetterton, which I raced many times, as opposed to this new version, that this is the second time I've ever raced it, this corner used to be the only left-hander where you use the back tyre, because you used to brake into the S's with the front and you used to drive out here. So on a cold day, like today, this is where everybody high-sided, because you came in, turned it onto the left-hand side of the tyre, which was stone cold, you touched the throttle and it went bing, and you ended up somewhere over near Thetford. And yesterday I was riding around, and especially on the twin, that isn't very heavy and doesn't generate as much tyre temperature, through here you could feel the back tyre quite loose, and I thought, oh no, it's cold. But actually it's more about the tarmac, because it's probably, I can't remember, getting on for 15 years since they remade Snetterton into this new sort of 300 version, and this bit of tarmac is really worn. So that adds to the feeling of possibly a slightly colder rear tyre, but the tarmac just isn't grippy because there's less of it. So as you're driving out here, you get quite a bit of movement off the back tyre, which is disconcerting. And then, of course, what you want to do if you get it right is just out to the curbs, maybe on the curbs, little wheelie off the end, fire yourself up the start-finish straight, and hopefully get a trophy. There's very little chance of that, but if I can get the lap times down today, that'll be a win for me.
I might not got the Aprilia off the line particularly fast, but once I get the throttle open and get it revving, she is quick. And against the traditional Super Twins, sometimes it feels a little bit like cheating, and I'm okay with that. After the Supertwin, it's back out on the big bike. It certainly feels fast after the little Aprilia, but this time I had my eye on a bit sooner. The first lap might not have been spectacular, but as the race went on I chipped away, got my head down and dialed in some faster laps. I even did a little bit of overtaking, which was nice. Sometimes I even got the line round Coram about right. Not in too tight to begin with, little bit of throttle, let it roll a little bit wide around the second half of the corner, and then cut it right back, nearly clip the white line, and it squares off the line out of the last corner considerably better. And then you get a better run up the start-finish straight. My second Supertwin race of the day was an absolute corker. 5th place position and elbows out. It was great fun. I like the little Aprilia.
So some bikes have just gone onto the grid for the first race after lunch. I've done 3 races this morning. Twin and then back to back on the big bike. My line around Coram, if I can say that properly, is definitely getting better. Still not going terribly quickly, but we are chipping away. I was 2 seconds a lap quicker on the big bike this morning. The Twin, I had the first race on it this morning, got going, had a decent start, chipped away at it, and it was good. I knocked 2 seconds off from yesterday. And then I've had another Supertwin race mid-morning, late morning even, that I'd actually, because I hadn't read the schedule properly, I thought I only had 2 races. Turns out I had 3, so it's a good job somebody else pointed that out to me. And I knocked another 2 seconds off, picked up another couple of places, had another good start. And the faster I go on that Twin, the better it gets. That bike is brilliant. I'm just absolutely loving it, because the more I dig in, the more I try on it, the better it just gets. And it's a masterpiece, that bike, really. Alright, so what else is there? I have 2 more races, back to back, Twin and then big bike. The weather is better, so it's warmed up, lap time's better, there's some grip on the circuit, and I'm enjoying myself.
Into the last Supertwin race of the weekend. I'm a second row on the grid, and showing the clutch a little bit of respect, I get off the line fairly cleanly, and then once the bike's actually moving and revving, it is quick. I'm pretty good on the brakes. Russell Brooks on another RS660 is really good as well, so there was no chance of me getting underneath him into there. I almost feel guilty.
The lad on this Supertwin's put in some real effort round the corners, and then we get to a straight line, and I unleash the Aprilia. Dun 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 dun. Then something strange happened. I got overtaken, in a straight line. But it was by another RS660, so that's sort of alright. Then it turns out, for the last spot on the podium, it was turning into the RS660 Cup, and it was great fun. I might not have actually won this edition of the RS660 Cup, but it was good fun to be in the fight. After the final bike change of the weekend, it was time to get out on the BMW for the last race. My start was actually pretty good, my first lap wasn't bad either, and then it got a little bit scrappy, so I decided it was best to knock a couple of percent off, get my lines right, keep it neat and tidy, and not do anything daft. So it may not have been my best performance ever, but it was still darned good fun.
So that's it, the weekend is done. The last two races, the Supertwin race was brilliant fun. It turned into the battle of the RS660s. I actually lost that battle a bit, but it was good fun. The lap times were just a little bit slower than earlier, but the wind's picked up and the conditions aren't maybe quite so good. But really good fun. I wasn't taking sort of any unnecessary risk. I was riding within a level that I knew I could do. And that bike is just brilliant. It does everything I wanted to do now. We've made a few little tweaks over the weekend, and that thing is just a dream to ride. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I got off that, jumped on the BMW, and this time the transition just took me a little bit longer. My first lap were actually pretty good, and then I didn't quite get the flow. It didn't all work together, so I had a couple of laps a bit scrappy, and then just decided to chill out, make my braking marks a little bit earlier, run some corner speed, just enjoy riding the bike, and it was alright. We had a bit of a dice at the end. It was good fun, not my finest performance, but it was good fun. And now I've packed up, I'm ready to go home. Now I feel tired. A very busy week has caught up on me, so I have the front of the van full of sugary treats, and I'm going to go home. Put my feet up. Can't even speak properly. I'm going to go home, put my feet up, watch some MotoGP, eat some takeaway, and relax. Thank you for watching, and join me again next time for some more motorbike fun.